So hello everyone and welcome to this video of one of the most significant concepts within an SAP project, transport request. So we will take a look at the concept and relevance of a transport request. We'll also take a look at the types, transaction code and check tables. We'll do most of this in the system. Now if you're hoping to become a good consultant, it is not enough that you just know about your specific module, and this video is independent of any module that you are from, whether you are from functional, whether you are from development, or whether you are from basis. This is a concept that you would need a good hold on if you hope to become a good SAP consultant. So without further ado, let's jump right in. So typically, this is the kind of a landscape that you will see more or less. Sandbox system is marked in orange because typically this is a system that you get to play around with. You can test different configuration, different combinations. You can create reports, checks if you are able to create some complex reports, etc. These kind of activities are done in sandbox system, not something that is locked in any transport request as such. So before we move to the further landscapes, what is a transport request? So transport requests are containers that typically hold the changes made to the SAP system, like configuration updates, ABAP developments, role creation, etc. So primarily SAP is a packaged application. So if you are making changes in one system, then this needs to be captured in a container, which is typically your transport request, and then this is released to the higher landscapes. So going back to the landscaping, the development system is usually where you will be making most of your configuration or changes, creating ABAP objects or creating roles, etc. And this is always locked in a transport request. The next system is usually the quality system. Now development system can have multiple clients. In my experience, you usually have two clients. For example, the 100 client is where you make all the configuration changes, updates, and 200 client is where you actually test them. So the data, etc. for testing will be available in the 200 client. And then you have the quality system. So development system typically has low amount of data or dummy data. In quality system, you will have a little bigger volume of data and more close to the production kind of data, or at least the different scenarios. So sometimes you may have pre-production system. So from quality, the changes move to pre-production system as a preparation for the production or go live. But a lot of times the projects don't opt for this additional box because of course this is cost, and this is also going to require additional effort and time to do the tests and ensure everything goes fine. But bigger organizations typically like to run a production kind of scenario in a pre-production system, so they also have a pre-production system. That is why you see a dotted line where you see that from quality there are also chances that you directly go into the production system. So production system is of course where the users, your customers, are actually logging in orders or creating materials or creating purchase orders, etc. Financial documents, etc. are being created there. Right, so as we were discussing, changes are typically made in the development system and released to higher landscapes. So usually the release happens with the help of the basis team. There is an import program, there is a job that is typically set up. It can be anywhere between, it run anywhere between 15 minutes to 5 minutes every day, in everyday intervals, or it can also be distributed across different times, but typically it's a job that is used to import or release data from one system to the next. Sometimes also from development to quality is an immediate transport as well. That depends on how the basis has designed their architecture, how they would like to take this forward. But from usually from quality to pre-production or production is also a planned activity that doesn't happen immediately. There are criterias that need to be signed off. For example, depends on where the user acceptance test happens. That usually happens in the quality system, and then the transports are then released. How they are released is altogether a very different and big topic. For example, the sequencing needs to be correct. Not only just the physical sequencing, even conceptually, it needs to be understood what kind of data goes first. For instance, you will look to send the sales organization or the organization enterprise structure related information first, then you will send all the dependent configurations or like route setup or shipping point or things like that only after you have set up the initial enterprise structure or released the initial enterprise structure. Production release is usually a discussed and planned activity, as we were just discussing, referred to as cutover. So the production, there are 2-3 different cases. Can be a completely blank system, maybe a greenfield implementation where the company has been working on a totally different third-party system. They are working on SAP for the first time, so there must be nothing logged in the production system. A lot of times the production system is already being used and there is just a new project, a new implementation. For instance, the GST tax implementation or any specific country tax implementation or something like that, where the production is already live, transactions are already running, but there will be a blackout period, like 2, 3, 4 or days or a week, where depending on the client and the volume of data and the kind of amount of changes that have to go in, and during that time the transports will be released. There will be checks happening whether the existing solution is not disturbed and everything is running fine, or if there was no existing solution, then whatever changes have come in, they are all fine. The transports have not failed, and the RC is 0, etc. Right? So let's take a look in the system, and then we can come back to the next slide regarding the transport requests. So transport organizer, this is a well-known transaction. So it is SE09 or SE10, both point to the same program. If you go and check in SE93, there is just a difference of an authorization group, but otherwise you will see the screen is the same. So here you will see the different types of transport requests. Most of you must be aware. Customizing requests are something that are used for configuration changes done by different functional folks, and workbench requests are something that are used for mostly development objects that the ABAP developer will be creating. Now, transport of copies is another type of transport request, which is typically used when you want to transfer changes to any specific landscape. So let's say you only want to transfer changes from development to quality, then you use transport of copies, because this change then will not be transferred to production. Otherwise, the usual path will be followed, where you have development to quality to production. Then there is another type of transport request, not very often used, called relocations. So let's say you are using the sandbox system and you want to transfer changes from sandbox system to the development system, then relocation is an option that you can choose. So there might not be a designed path, but you can still use this option where your original system for those objects will get updated automatically when you use this relocation concept. So other things that you can do here that is visible on the screen is you will be able to see which transport requests are still modifiable and which ones have been released. So what does this mean? This typically means that if you are working on the development system, this is an example. Here you can see all these transport requests have not been released really. If you want to see a release transport, you will typically see a check mark here, and this will be slightly darker and more grayed out when you see such requests. And if not, then this is modifiable, this is still usable. You can still load or still use these containers to store further transport requests. So here you can see this is the workbench request, this is the customizing request, etc. So different kind of objects get logged in here, and these then get used to release those changes into quality, pre-production and the production system. Okay, um, let's look at some of the tables that are really relevant and important. So a lot of times what will happen is when you are going to work on the cutover phase, or when you are going to work on the higher landscapes like pre-production, production, your roles will be a little more restricted. You may not have the access level that you have in the development or the quality system, but you may still have access to this transaction SE16N, or sometimes you may have access to only SE16, etc. But these are pretty similar. You will then be able to at least see the content in most of these tables. So some of the important tables that are really helpful in terms of transport request is E070. This is the header table. So as soon as you create any transport request, this is where you will see your transport request information logged. Who is the user, what is the date the transport was created. If there are tasks, then you will see the task number, and wherever you see these headers filled means that this is the header main task, and the ones that do not uh, and the ones where you do see the header value updated, those are the tasks. Where you do not, where you see that these are blank, these are the main tasks, right? So here you will also see the short description of those transport requests. So sometimes you might want to search for the transport request based on the description because you have a nomenclature. For that you may need to use the other table, that is E07T, which is the text table for the transport request, and there you can give any module specific or object specific description, and you will be able to track down your transport request in that fashion. So how about the objects that are held in the transport request? How do you get to know that? So that information is available here in the next table, that is E071. So usually you will have transport requests starting with a very specific 3 or 4 characters, which is typically your system ID. So for example, if you are using a development system, then you may have DEV starting with DEV, and the transport requests when then usually will start with DEVK, and then whatever, there must be a number series. So here you can see that there are different object names. Now typically in one of our other videos we have seen that configurations that are done are typically in the background view tables that exists, and that is why for a lot of these transport requests you will see the objects v underscore, or objects that end with v. Obviously there are not going to be only views, there are going to be some table information. It is also possible to capture table data records in a transport requests if it is marked as such in the table maintenance generator, for example. So you will be able to track transport requests even based on the objects that are linked to it. Now if you want further information as to, even from an object standpoint, I want to know, so let's say for example if I have configured 10 sales organizations and I find that in my quality system I see only 9 sales organization, but I am not able to find the 10th one. And maybe now I'm not from the sales team, I'm from a different team, but for me that sales organization is important because I'm trying to run some transaction. So now how do I get to know if that sales organization has really come in, or for example any company code has really come in? So the company code table most people may already know is T001. So we will just quickly check in this case if we are able to find any transport request that is using this table or the view related to T001. Now most cases it will be a view, and hence I have used a star T001 star, because I don't know whether it is v underscore, or I mean I do, but then if you do not know then you can use the star T001 star. And let's say I only want to see the system related, I also want to put that restriction, because otherwise you will also get all the transports that are external, that are coming from SAP as well. So if you don't want to really see that, then use that kind of filter as well. So here you will see I have got a big list of records that seem to have T001. From what I understand, even this master name is useful. So I put the T001 filter in the view name, and that's where you see that all the data that is T001 related has popped up. But if you want further information as to what part of T001 this is, so here you can see these are mostly address data. I can tell you that 23894 is the ADR-NR number, or that is the address number. So if I want to specifically see the company code information, that is typically captured in v underscore T001. So here I can see, so 800 should be the client number, so SY00 is the company code ID. So if you want to check specific ID, then you can also put that restriction in the tab key. So there is a field called tab key, and here if I now put SY00, you will see further restricted records, and now you see that this has further restricted the records. If I now also put the master name as VT001, then you will only see this particular record. So you can see that this has been stored in this specific transport request. You will need to backtrace and find out if this transport request now has been released. And how you can do that is in the E070 table, you have the status called as TR status, where you will be able to see whether this is modifiable or whether this is released. So mostly you will only see these two items here so far as I have seen. Release started means that you have started the release and it is still to complete. Then maybe there are a lot of objects and this is an ongoing activity. At that point you will find that it is an O. But otherwise the status that you will typically see here would be D and R. This is extremely useful when you go to the higher landscape. You will be able to see in quality, whether your transport requests have reached and whether all of them have uh, reached correctly, and so on and so forth. So if you want to see whether any specific transport request has failed, you see that the transport request is available in the system, but you are seeing that it has not brought the relevant information. So you will need to go and typically check the logs, transport logs here. Let me see if there are any released changes. Yeah, this is a test system, so I really don't see any release changes. But when you click on your transport request and check these logs, there you will also be able to see the import log, and you will be able to see whether that is imported green or it is imported red, whether the size sub RC is set to 4 or 8, in which case there is some issue. Maybe there is some dependency transport that had to be sent first and was not sent. So this needs to be carefully checked, right? So yeah, so if I go to the second slide, that is the information this holds. Transport requests are primarily four types. This is something we just discussed. Transaction codes, again, SE01, extended view, SE09, SE10, transport organizer, etc. Then check tables, these are something we just saw. So hope this information helps you understand transport requests a bit better. The more you work in these phases, let's say the release and the cutover, etc., your understanding of the transport requests will grow further, right? Okay, thank you so much, and catch you in the next video.